All right, we'll get started. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome again to the March OSARC Zoom meeting. My name is Joan Buravoy. I am the OSARC chairperson. I have to look at the piece of paper to see who I am. Um, and I'd like to introduce Susan O'Brien. Susan is the secretary. Dr. Judith Lovell. Judith is a volunteer with the board. Mark, who is acting vice chair, is en route home from Florida, so he won't be joining us. And Colleen? I don't see Colleen. All right, Colleen Cox is a consultant to the board. Jay Wachowski is the COMRO rep, but I don't think he'll be able to join us. So you will have Joan Garippa giving the COMRO report, Rob Spencer, media director of OSA, and Megan Wolfsey Flanagan, who's assistant to Bob Krogan. So again, welcome everyone. Good, good to see you. We're going to just do a quick little a little switch in the agenda. We're going to do the COMRO report first. So Joan, if you could go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm going to truncate a little bit of what was said. COMRO had today, and we have every year, a presentation by uh, a lady from a state organization who tells us all of the latest news about what's going on with seniors. And this morning she informed us that, and she tells us between the state and the federal and what the effects might be. But since it was rather lengthy, I'm going to make it short and ask you to do one thing at the end. Okay. It seems at this point, Congress has been given the instruction from federally that they should reduce non-defense spending of all kinds and give by 13% of the total budget and take away that amount from non-defense spending. So defense goes up 13%, and all the rest of the programs that people are used to and dependent on will be reduced 13%. And obviously they are fighting this. They will need it passed the House. They will need 7 Democratic votes to pass the bill. They need 7 more people in addition to the Republican number that they have there to pass this bill. Okay, the state impacts so far are questionable. We're not quite sure just what will pass and what won't. Now, in the middle of all of this, we want to tell you that the governor, so now we're in New York State, the governor has said she's going to have a $5 billion tax cut. And she has, last year she did something like $20 billion she set aside for a rainy day fund in case her numbers were not correct. The whole budget amounts to $252 billion. At this point in New York State, there are 4.6 million people who are 60 and over. We're going up to, shortly, 5.2 million who will be over 60. Eventually, especially when we get the rest of the next set of retirees, we're now at about 20% of the population being seniors, and we will be 25% of the population being seniors. What impacts us most, of course, is Medicare and Medicaid, and the state is in charge of Medicaid. So the state has been giving 1.5% increases to those who work in Medicaid, and 2.1% to government contract staffing that works in Medicaid. They are asking this particular group that we're talking about operates a helpline for seniors in New York State. The cost of the helpline itself is $231,000 a year. the budget that we're looking at now has cut $200,000 out of their funding, and they're asking people to please call up and say that they want them to have the funding. This is called the Statewide Senior Action Council, by the way. It's New York State Statewide Action Council. Statewide Senior Action, excuse me. Okay. They're currently getting much more complex calls, and they're actually asking for more than the $200,000 that was cut. They're asking for an additional amount because the calls are getting much more complex now, and it takes longer to tell people how they can approach whatever the problem is, etc. They are asking that you go to your state senators, state congresspeople, representatives, to ask that they not cut programs and in fact enhance programs for seniors. Now, the one thing that's very important that I have to tell you, I want to skip all the rest of it to get to what's necessary. New York City, the City Council, has Intro 1096. Intro 1096 needs to be passed. It codifies Medicare and gives you a choice of whether or not you have Medicare or Medicare Advantage. We need to do this. We need to do this for the people who are working and will be on Medicare eventually, and for ourselves. As you know, the mayor wants to have Medicare Advantage for everybody. And as I said to many people, that's fine when you're young and healthy and you don't have many bills. But under Medicare Advantage, a lot of people are finding themselves under a good deal of problems because they refuse to approve costly procedures that need to be done. So please call your city council person and say that you want them to support Intro 1096. That you want your Medicare and you want always to have that choice, that you want traditional Medicare. And then everyone will be protected, because if they want Medicare Advantage, they can do that also. But people who want traditional Medicare need to support Intro 1096 or your local council person and state that that is your wish. Okay. There's going to be a mayoral forum, by the way, on the 17th of April. I don't think the place and date and what have you have been set yet, but in case you want to see the mayoral candidates and what they have to say about these things, that's the date. Now, to get back to what was stated, the governor, I should say, last year balanced her budget by using money that was left over from COVID. Well, that money is now gone. So we want to make sure that the balancing of the budget doesn't come at the expense of retirees and other people who are, for one reason or another, on Medicaid or Medicare. So it behooves us all to please also contact your local state senator and your local state representative so that they make sure that the way the governor is attempting to balance her budget does not impact senior citizens in New York City in a deleterious manner. The governor is currently saying she's going to give this money to this one and that money to that one. The money has to come from someplace. And we don't have it anymore from the COVID funding. We don't want it coming on the backs of seniors to fund all kinds of refunds that may or may not apply to us. I could go into more details, but I think I've given you enough of a look-see at what's currently going on. Now, there are meetings that are going on both statewide and federally. So there will be updates on these things. But this is as it is now. Your concerns are both statewide and federal. You do not wish Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid cut in any way. Okay.
Right.
I think that was short enough. Joan?
Yeah, thank you. I think because we do have to get going with the presentation. This was quite important, probably even for our guest presenters. I don't know how your organization is affected by what's going on, with health insurance and obviously you probably deal with an older population yourselves. So I will reach out to you because there were a few things that I apologize I didn't catch. John, I'll reach out to you just to get a few of the things because we want to make sure it's included in the minutes. So
Okay,
that
so let me tell you the name of the lady who gave the presentation, so you know. The lady who gave us the presentation is called Maria Alvarez. She's the executive director, and it's New York Statewide Senior Action.
Okay.
I'll repeat that.
All
Maria
right.
Alvarez, New York Statewide Senior Action.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Joan. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. So onto our presentation. I'm going to introduce Joon Her. Joon is a program manager at the Alzheimer's Association of the New York City chapter. And he works to connect communities in Manhattan and Upper Queens with vital Alzheimer's and dementia resources. Through education programs, care consultations, and strategic referrals, Joon empowers individuals seeking answers and support in the challenging landscape of dementia and Alzheimer's disease. Welcome, Joon.
Great. Thank you so much, Sean. And thank you so much, everyone, for welcoming me and also Hong, who is one of our community educators, to be on this call to just do a quick overview of what it is, what Alzheimer's and dementia is. As many know, this is a very big public health, and it's ongoing too. It's a very big topic within today's public health world. And, there's just unfortunately many people who are affected by this disease. So we're just really here to really raise awareness, whether that be for, a loved one that you might be taking care of, or maybe a neighbor or friend, or, even just the general public. It's just really good to have this general knowledge about Alzheimer's dementia, just because you just never know who might need it. So I'm going to pass over to Hong. So, Hong, if you want to do a quick introduction and then get the program started, that'd be great.
Okay. So hi everyone. So welcome to today's Understanding Alzheimer's and Dementia webinar. So I'm Hong Xiao. I'm a community educator volunteer with the NYC chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. I do community educating programs like this virtually and sometimes in person. So it's a pleasure to be with you today. Shall we start? Okay, yeah. I'm going to share my screen. I will use PowerPoint presentation. And then because today we're really having a lot of information to present, and then due to the shortage in terms of timing, and then we're going to reserve the questions until the end. And then Joon is going to monitor your questions if you post them in the chats as we go. And also we'll try to reserve like a little bit time at the end of the presentation to address these questions. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. All right. Does everyone see my screen all right?
You're good.
Okay, thank you. All right. So today's program is really designed for people who are interested in learning more about Alzheimer's and other dementias. We're going to share information from dementia experts and perspectives from individuals living with the dementia and care partners. So let's take a look at what we're going to discuss today. So today we are going to take a top-level look at Alzheimer's and dementia to give you a broad understanding. So we're going to compare Alzheimer's and dementia. We're going to discuss how Alzheimer's disease affects the brain. We're also going to look at the risk factors of Alzheimer's disease and then identify the 3 stages of the disease. We're also going to discuss current FDA-approved treatments for Alzheimer's and dementia, as well as how scientists are working to advance research in this area. In the end, we're going to talk about the resources available through the Alzheimer's Association. Okay, so first, let's look at the impact of Alzheimer's. So Alzheimer's is a global crisis, and you likely are hearing more and more about it in your personal lives and on the news. So let's start off by seeing what you know about the impact of Alzheimer's in the United States. Okay, we're going to test your knowledge with a few quick questions. First, so approximately how many Americans are currently living with Alzheimer's? So take a guess, over 3 million or more than 6 million or about 8 million or about 11 million. So the correct answer is more than 6 million. Worldwide, estimated 55 million people are currently living with the dementia, but in the United States, the number is more than 6 million. And actually, this number is projected to reach nearly 30 million by 2050. Another question about how many Americans provide unpaid care for people living with Alzheimer's or other dementias. So currently, currently more than 11 million Americans are providing unpaid care for people living with Alzheimer's or other dementia. Alzheimer's impacts caregivers both at home and at work. More than 80% of care providers provided at home is delivered by family members, friends, or other unpaid caregivers. And over half of the employed caregivers report having to go in late, take time off, or quit altogether due to caregiver demands. So as you can see, this disease takes a personal impact on the individuals facing it, as well as a financial one. So let's learn a few more statistics about the impact of Alzheimer's.
I don't have any audio.
For the people who are on their phone, Hong is going through like a slideshow that we're reading. So
I
that's why.
suggest that she actually reads some of the numbers. I'm visually impaired. I can't read that.
Hong, could you do like a very quick like overview of the slideshow that you were just going through?
Yes, we are. I think we just passed that.
Hong, I think you also need to share your sound when you click share screen. So while
Oh,
you unshare and
sorry.
then share again, I can definitely talk
Okay.
about the facts and figures that
Yeah,
were
I
listed
was,
on the slide.
okay.
So on the,
Let me,
June, were we supposed to hear something then?
yes, it's okay.
Oh,
can you,
Yes.
sorry, do you hear the video just now? You didn't hear the sound.
No.
no.
So
Oh,
when you
interesting.
reshare
Oh, I
again,
see. Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize for that.
no worries.
Okay.
I can do
I
a quick
just,
overview, Hong,
okay.
about the 2024 facts and figures right now while you get that settled. So
Yeah,
in the video, we
sure.
saw that there were nearly 7 million Americans currently living with Alzheimer's right now. And we did see that some of the statistics said that 1 in 3 older adults do unfortunately pass with Alzheimer's and other dementias. And again, like we answered in the question, we did see that there were over 11 million Americans providing that unpaid care for people living with Alzheimer's and dementia. So it just really highlights the reasons why we want to make sure that we do know about what what the disease is, because we do see that again for the lifetime risk of Alzheimer's for people at the age of 45 is 1 in 5 for women and 1 in 10 for men as well. We also saw that there were 70% of dementia caregivers just feeling very stressed when they were trying to coordinate care. So, and again, that also comes with the unpaid care aspect too. So that's just what came in the video that was shared by Hong.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, June. All right. Let's move on. Okay. Okay, so we're going to talk about Alzheimer's and dementia first. So you may hear the terms Alzheimer's and dementia used interchangeably. They're related but different. So in this next section, we're going to discuss both Alzheimer's and dementia and how they're related. Before we begin, let's take a moment to test your knowledge about Alzheimer's disease. So Alzheimer's is a normal part of the aging process. Is it true or false?
Well,
So the answer is false because Alzheimer's is a brain disease that causes problems with memory, thinking, and behavior. It's not a normal part of aging. So the second question is, people younger than age 65 can get Alzheimer's. True or false?
oh, true.
It is true, yes. So although it is much less common, people younger than 65 can develop Alzheimer's. Okay, next one. And then let's hear some experts' opinion on this.
Dementia is the umbrella term for an individual's changes in memory, thinking, or reasoning. There are many possible causes of dementia, and Alzheimer's is the most common cause. Other causes of dementia are vascular dementia, which is marked by changes in the blood flow and the blood vessels in the brain. Dementia with Lewy bodies, identified by specific brain changes throughout the brain that include the buildup of a protein known as alpha-synuclein. And frontal temporal dementia, which is marked by brain cell loss in the front sections of the brain or the frontal lobe. Each type of dementia may have distinct characteristics to cause specific behaviors in the individual, but there is also some overlap in behaviors among the types of dementia.
So as we saw, there are many causes of dementia. However, Alzheimer's is the most common. So there are numerous types of dementia. Each type has different causes and symptoms. These listed here are just a few classifications. Now we're going to look at why accurate diagnosis is important.
Certainly having the diagnosis of Lewy body was helpful in our planning because we began to understand where this was coming from in the brain, where otherwise we would not have known. Like we knew something was happening, but what was it? To give it a label actually helped, although it was a big umbrella. It explains some of the characteristics and symptoms that we were experiencing and seeing.
As we can see, a diagnosis of a dementia requires further testing to identify the specific disease or condition causing the symptoms. It is important to seek an accurate early diagnosis. So while there is not yet a cure for Alzheimer's, there is a great value in seeking this diagnosis. This includes access to treatment options, opportunities to get resources and support, and more time to plan for the future. Okay. This is a quick recap on what we just discussed about Alzheimer's and dementia. So dementia is a general form of a collection of symptoms that are severe enough to interfere with daily life. Alzheimer's is the most common cause of dementia. Alzheimer's is not a normal part of aging. It is a progressive brain disease. So now let's move on to the next module, next section of the presentation. We're going to look at Alzheimer's in the brain. First, let's hear from the expert.
More than 100 years ago, Dr. Alzheimer described specific changes in the brain, what we now call the formation of plaques and tangles. Alzheimer's is a progressive brain disease that's marked by these key changes and impacts memory, thinking, and behavior. The brain has three main parts: the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. Each one plays a role in how the body functions. Alzheimer's disease causes nerve cells to die, which leads to brain tissue loss and causes loss of function and communication between cells. These changes can cause the symptoms of Alzheimer's, such as memory loss, behavioral issues, problems with thinking, planning, and at the end stage, swallowing.
So more than 100 years ago, Dr. Alois Alzheimer described specific changes in the brain, the formation of plaques and tangles. So Alzheimer's causes nerve cells to die, which leads to shrinkage in the brain. The brain changes result in changes in memory, thinking, and behavior. So this is a quick recap. Okay, yeah, I just actually said the recap, sorry. Okay, let's move on to the next module. We're going to talk about the risk factors of Alzheimer's and people like developing Alzheimer's disease. There are a few known factors that increases a person's risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. Let's see if you know which one is the most common. So what is the greatest known risk factor for Alzheimer's disease? There are genetics, family history, age. These are all risk factors, but which is the most common? Actually, age. As mentioned, age is the greatest known risk factor. After age 65, the risk of developing Alzheimer's doubles every 5 years. So more than a third of people age 85 or older are living with the disease.
Alzheimer's disease is marked by specific brain changes that result in the clinical changes in individual experiences. That is, changes in memory, thinking, or reasoning. And ultimately, Alzheimer's is fatal. The exact cause for these changes is unknown, but there are some hints as to what may contribute to an individual's risk. Age is the greatest known risk factor for Alzheimer's, and when we look at populations of people, we see an increased risk over the age of 65. However, Alzheimer's is not normal aging. Family history is also a known risk factor. Research has shown that those who have a parent or a sibling with Alzheimer's are more likely to develop the disease, and that risk increases if more than one family member has Alzheimer's. When we talk about the genes involved in Alzheimer's, there are two categories that could potentially be involved: risk genes and deterministic genes. Risk genes increases an individual's risk for developing the disease, but does not guarantee that they will develop Alzheimer's. Deterministic genes, which are rare for Alzheimer's, guarantee that the person will develop the disease.
Okay, now let's take a look at some populations who are at higher risk for developing the disease. So in addition to the main risk factors for the general population, Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, and women are at higher risk for Alzheimer's. Research shows that Black Americans are about twice as likely as white Americans to have Alzheimer's, or another dementia. And Hispanic Americans are 1.5 times likely. The reason for these differences is not well understood, but researchers believe that higher rates of vascular disease in these groups may also put them at greater risk for developing Alzheimer's. And also, women are more likely than men to develop the disease. Nearly 4 million American women are living with the disease today. We know that women live longer than men, making them more likely to develop Alzheimer's. But longevity and the lower death rates can only partially explain this difference. Researchers are now exploring how genetic differences between men and women may impact this disease risk. Okay, now let's take a look at the risk factors recap. So to summarize, Alzheimer's disease involves the failure of nerve cells, the exact cause of which is still uncertain. Age is the greatest known risk factor for Alzheimer's. An individual's risk for developing the disease increases at age 65.
Make that lower.
Family history is a known risk factor. Having a parent or sibling with this disease increases an individual's risk. So there are two types of genes, risk genes and deterministic genes that are associated with Alzheimer's. Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, and women are at increased risk for developing Alzheimer's. Okay, so let's move on to learn about the stages of Alzheimer's disease. Right. Let's hear from people who are living with the dementia.
I'm like an overachiever. And when you're unable to deliver or you're not performing at the same pace that you once did before, that's frustrating. It's frustrating to not know where you place things. It's frustrating to not be able to explain to someone the problems that you're having. You can't articulate it in a way. It's frustrating to read something and you forgot what you read. It's frustrating to continuously have to change your password and you just changed it last week and you're constantly doing the same thing over and over again.
Math, I can't do a simple tip anymore. You know, I sit there, I stare at it. It's crazy what numbers I can't deal with anymore. And in some ways, that's the disease to me. The other thing that I've increasingly been struggling with are words, which I've dealt with words my entire life. You know, as an avid reader, as a reporter, as a writer. I struggle with them now.
I think the thing that surprises me the most about my dementia is that it is progressive, and I'm finding that I'm forgetting more. And they do memory tests for me all the time at the doctor's, and so that becomes a little disconcerting at times, to see my cognitive impairment continue to decline. But again, I really have hope. I don't live really in the future. I can't live in the future. I can't worry about what the future is going to bring. I have to live for today.
So these individuals we just heard from are living in the early stages of the disease. So symptoms worsen over time for everyone. However, people progress through stages of Alzheimer's at different rates as their abilities change. So on average, a person with Alzheimer's lives 4 to 8 years after diagnosis, but can live as long as 20 years, depending on other factors. So now let's, I'm sorry, kind of like lost. Okay, now, yes, let's learn about the progression of Alzheimer's disease. So the progression of Alzheimer's disease from brain changes that are unnoticeable to the person to brain changes that cause problems with memory and eventually physical disability is called the Alzheimer's disease continuum. On this continuum, there are three broad phases, as you can see on the screen. So these stages are shown or highlighted in different colors, in teal, orange, and purple. So the first phase is called asymptomatic. In this phase, there may be changes in the brain long before a person begins to have symptoms or gets a diagnosis. As the disease progresses, the person will begin to experience mild symptoms, but will still be able to independently perform most activities of everyday living. So in this phase, the person may be diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment, or what we call MCI. In the third phase, people who do develop dementia due to Alzheimer's will experience more serious changes in memory, thinking, and behavior. This phase is further broken down into stages called mild, moderate, and severe. Sometimes these are referred to as early, middle, or late stages of Alzheimer's. So these stages reflect the degree to which symptoms interfere with the person's everyday activities. So it is important to understand that stages of Alzheimer's are general, and some people may exhibit symptoms that overlap stages. As Alzheimer's progresses, the individual's behaviors will change, as does the role of a caregiver. So these stages can help caregivers prepare for what to expect and understand how to best respond. So to recap, the three broad phases of Alzheimer's disease are asymptomatic, mild, and cognitive impairment, or MCI, due to Alzheimer's disease, and dementia due to Alzheimer's disease. The dementia phase is further broken down into three stages: mild, moderate, and severe. So no two individuals experience the symptoms and the progression of Alzheimer's disease in the same way. Okay. All right. Now let's look at some FDA-approved treatments for Alzheimer's and dementia. So until very recently, the only treatments available helped with some cognitive symptoms of Alzheimer's. However, they do not modify or slow the disease. Because everyone experiences Alzheimer's differently, these treatments work in varying degrees and are not effective for everyone. So we should understand that there are also drug and non-drug options that may help treat symptoms such as memory loss and confusion. So they may be taken as a pill or a patch or intravenously. So these treatments work in varying degrees and are not effective for everyone. So we encourage you, if you're interested in getting more information or you have a loved one who's experienced symptoms, to have a conversation with a healthcare professional to determine whether a specific treatment is appropriate. And also on our website, alz.org/treatment, you can get a lot of more information in this regard. Okay, let's move on to the next section, advancing Alzheimer's research. First, let's listen to some experts on this in this regard.
This is an incredibly exciting time in Alzheimer's and dementia research. The advancements that we've made in the last decade to understand the disease as a continuum, meaning that the biological changes are starting a decade or more before someone is experiencing the changes in the memory and thinking. This sets the stage for possible prevention. The idea that when we have the tools to identify those individuals at the earliest time point, and when we have the interventions to target individuals at that earliest time point, we can intervene to stop or slow the progression of the disease before an individual loses their memories.
Growing evidence indicates that people can reduce their risk of cognitive decline by adopting key lifestyle habits. More and more research shows that factors like exercise, nutrition, and aggressive management of cardiovascular risk factors may impact our ability to slow cognitive decline as we age. And through current studies, we're exploring how certain lifestyle factors may even reduce the risk of developing Alzheimer's and dementia.
A lot of hope does come from the Alzheimer's Association, all the research that is being done. Even though there is not a cure today for the disease, I know in my heart there is going to be a cure one day. And I know we're getting closer for that cure. Because even if you fail in a research study, you learn from that failure in the research study. That failure always brings progression.
It's nice to see the association spearheading in many ways the emphasis on getting the money at the federal level and at the private sector to get the research done so that someday there will be an effective treatment, hopefully cure, hopefully prevention.
So as we heard, everyone can help to advance Alzheimer's research. The only way to make sure that future treatments are effective for people of all races and ethnicities is to increase participation in clinical research. Let's take a look at association, a service that provided by the Alzheimer's Association that can help people find studies.
Participating in a clinical study is one way that everyone can get involved in a very direct way in the fight against Alzheimer's disease. And for people who currently have dementia or Alzheimer's disease, there are some additional benefits. You get access to very close medical care. You also may be among the first people to have access to the treatments that will eventually prove to work.
You might hear the phrase negative trial, which means it didn't hit the endpoint. It didn't result in an FDA-approved treatment for the disease. But I think the only negative trial is one that doesn't provide us with valuable information. If the trial is well designed and is a good scientific experiment, we can get extremely valuable data that can help plan the next trial and make it even better than the last one. And it gets you that much closer to that FDA-approved drug, to that effective treatment, and maybe someday even prevention. By participating in clinical research, you can move us toward methods of treatment and prevention for all those affected by this devastating disease. Alzheimer's Association Trial Match is a free clinical studies matching service for those with dementia, caregivers, and healthy volunteers. To start, simply create a confidential user profile and receive a list of studies that may be a match for you. Don't just hope for a cure, help us find one.
So just to quickly recap, so clinical studies may provide participants with cutting-edge treatments and additional medical care. And Trial Match is a free clinical studies matching service for people interested in participating in Alzheimer's research at Alzheimer's Association. So, and then we're going to now learn a little bit more about the Alzheimer's Association, how we help individuals and families across the country. So the Alzheimer's Association is in communities across the country, providing direct service to individuals and families facing the disease. The Alzheimer's Association leads the way to end Alzheimer's and all other dementia by accelerating global research, driving risk reduction and early detection, and maximizing quality care and support. Our vision is a world without Alzheimer's and all other dementias. So the association is, okay. So the association is available wherever and whenever you need reliable information and support. So there are 3 of our key resources that we recommend that you check and that can connect you to information and support that you may need. The first is our free 24/7 helplines. So you can call us at 800-272-3900 anytime, day or night, to receive information and support. This helpline provides access to highly trained and knowledgeable staff who can help with education, decision-making support, crisis assistance, and resource identification. And all the people who are available through this phone, they are master level clinicians. They can provide in-depth care consultations and free of charge care navigation service to offer to families who want to get information about this disease at any stages. The second resource that we provide is our website, alz.org. So this website, often it is the first step for individuals following a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or another dementia. So this website includes sections specifically for people living with the disease and the caregivers. And we'll hear from, do we have time? Okay, I think I'm going to skip the video on this one because we're running out of time. I want to reserve some time for questions. So this is the second resource that we provide. The third important resource that we provide at Alzheimer's Association is our Community Resource Finder. So Alzheimer's Association, ARP Community Resource Finder, provides a wealth of community-based resources available in your area, including long-term care and community-based services, local association offices, and their offering of programs and support services like what we're doing today. So we encourage you to visit alzheimer.org/CRP to get more information on this. Okay.
I've had a couple.
When I went,
I've been.
Now we have taken a basic look at Alzheimer's disease and what resources are available. Let's talk about how you can take action. So there are five ways that you can take actions against Alzheimer's and dementia. The first one is volunteering. So no matter how much time you can volunteer, and it's all welcome. There are like numerous opportunities at Alzheimer's Association, including becoming a community educator like myself or joining your local walk committee. So there are many ways that you can volunteer with the Alzheimer's Association. You can get like a better look at the opportunities by visiting the website, alz.org/volunteer. So another way of taking actions will be becoming an Alzheimer's Association advocate and speaking out on behalf of the needs and rights of those facing Alzheimer's disease. The third way of taking actions, like as we mentioned just now, is through trial match. So everyone can help advance Alzheimer's research by participating in clinical trials. So you can get started with the Alzheimer's Association trial match program, which is free and easy to use. And that can help you to find clinical studies and matching service. Okay. And another way to take actions is to join our Walk to End Alzheimer's. So this is a signature Alzheimer's Association initiative. It is held annually in more than 600 communities nationwide. So Walk to End Alzheimer's is the world's largest fundraiser for Alzheimer's care, support, and research. So you can, as we said before, all this information is online. So you're welcome to visit our website. Last but not least, it is an initiative called the Longest Day. So this is an initiative that takes place every year on the summer solstice day. So it helps raise funds and awareness for the care, support, and research efforts of the Alzheimer's Association through any activity of your choice. Okay. Right. I think this is pretty much the end of today's presentation. As we put up on the final slide, that's the our website, alz.org, and also our 24/7 helpline. Please help spread the information or use this like resources to help with your fight against Alzheimer's. So that's the end of my presentation, and June is going to take care of the questions starting from now. Thank you.
Okay. So actually, first of all, Hong, thank you so much. June, there's been a lot of questions in the chat, and you've been answering them. Could you go through them, because not everyone goes into the chat.
Absolutely. I know there's some also people on the phone too, so definitely don't want to exclude them from hearing the questions too.
Right. So
yeah.
actually,
Oh, go
everyone,
ahead.
you can use the raise hand function if you have questions. If you're not comfortable doing that, please put your questions in the chat. But right now, June is gonna, again, there have been a lot of questions in the chat, so June's gonna review those. And then be patient. If your hand's raised, then we'll call on you with your hand raised.
Great. Thank you, Joan. And thank you, Hong, again, for the excellent presentation. The first question that we had in the chat was talking about are there specific tests to determine if someone has Alzheimer's? And yes, so those tests can include, doesn't mean that you have to do all of these assessments and tests. Again, everyone's very different, and you want to talk with your physician or geriatrician about these tests, right? So some tests could include those brain imaging tests, a PET scan, MRI, right? To scan for what Hong talked about before, the plaques and tangles in the brain, right, for brain shrinkage and also holes that are forming in the brain, which are typically what shows that there might be Alzheimer's or another type of dementia in the brain, right? There's also the CSF analysis that's looking at the cerebrospinal fluids, comparing that to the different fluids in the brain too. Then there's also different assessments, so that those assessments could include, right, interview with a close companion, screening for depression, getting a medical history, or even getting those cognitive status tests, which could be like, doing word puzzles or, memory tests, et cetera, et cetera. And then, Joe, should we do like one chat and then one person the raising hand? Should we alternate?
Sure, we'll do that. Judith, unmute yourself.
Hi, I have a few questions because my mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 2013. And the doctors had said that you really don't know whether a patient has Alzheimer's until they pass, because they check the brain. Is that true?
So I know there's like in the past there was a very common misconception that you can only find Alzheimer's in the brain after an autopsy, after they pass, which is not the case anymore. Which is again where we have the brain imaging tests and all that tests I just talked about.
Okay. And then the other one was, I was just wondering why on the chart with risk factors, you had family history, genetics, and age. Why wasn't nutrition indicated there? Because we know that poor nutrition can wreak havoc with the body. And yeah, especially sweets, processed foods, this and that.
100%. And I think that's definitely a great point too. On that slide with those three that mentioned, those are the greatest risk factors that we see that are leading to the Alzheimer's or other dementias. But of course, we do have another program called Healthy Living for Your Brain and Body, which talks about the different healthy habits that we want to take in order for us to lower our risks of Alzheimer's dementia. And definitely with poor nutrition, with poor exercise, social isolation, not getting enough sleep every night, or sleep apnea, right? Those can also be putting you at a potential higher risk, which I actually do have a document that talks about the 10 healthy habits, which I can put in the chat once we're done with questions.
And my last question, 6 million presently in the United States with Alzheimer's. You indicated increasing numbers. And I wanted to know, this is like a two-part question. I wanted to know, do you have numbers on Alzheimer's in the past, let's say like 50 years ago? You know, are the numbers increasing? And if so, what do you think might be the cause? And with all of these wonderful, remarkable, success stories in terms of science, how come they're still projecting greater numbers, like triple?
Yeah, to kind of just wrap up everything
And
into one
thank you.
answer. Oh, of course. Thank you so much for joining us today, Judith, Dr. Judith.
Thank you.
For those numbers, right? I have to take into look about the statistics from 50 years ago. If I do find them, be sure to maybe send it over to Joan, and then yeah. But with those numbers, right? Because nowadays we do have a lot more testing availabilities going on, and with the newest research that comes out that we can actually test now for Alzheimer's dementia using a blood test, which is so much more simpler than doing a lot of these other assessments too, right? Because now there's a lot more availability within testing options and diagnostic centers, and of course with more awareness of Alzheimer's dementia. I want to say even 10 years ago, I feel like we haven't had too many, even TV ads or radio, hearings about Alzheimer's dementia. But I know nowadays there's so much more awareness about that, which ultimately leads to, right, a lot more of people getting tested because they had someone in their family history, or, they know that there is genetics passed down for risk genes, right? So that's why we do see that there is increasing number, right? Because of that more awareness, and also because of so many different factors that might have played into part with their healthy habits, with their other medical conditions too that could lead into Alzheimer's dementia at a higher risk, right? So there's so many different factors that could lead into those numbers being higher now. Okay. And then I'm going to go back before I see that Oscar is raising her. But before we go to Oscar, I'm going to go to one of the questions in the chat, and then we'll go back to you. All right. Where were we? So there's another question in the chat. Is there genetic testing to determine if one is at risk? Yes. So we did see that there are genetic testing done for the test for risk genes. So if you do have risk genes, right, that does show that there's increased risk of dementia or Alzheimer's for the person. Of course, doesn't mean that they're 100% going to get it, right? Those risk genes could be maybe there's like a 2% increase, right, of the increased risk, right? Again, just because there is risk genes or family history, right, doesn't mean that you're guaranteed to get it, right? Of course, if we do know that there is something like that, we want to make sure, again, going back to healthy habits, making sure that we are trying to lower our risk as much as possible within the other areas of, our living. The other gene that is very rare, right, is a very rare gene that's called deterministic genes that shows that dementia is guaranteed in the future, right? So that's why we want to make sure that if we are aware that somewhere down in our family history that there is something like that, and if we're starting to maybe show some symptoms, right, getting to the doctor as soon as possible and, having assessments. And again, we want to make sure that with any type of assessment, we're going to knock out all the other medical conditions or any other medical explanations before we come to conclusion that this is Alzheimer's and dementia.
Can you spell that gene that you said?
The deterministic genes?
Yeah. Oh, deterministic.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
got it. Thank you. Got it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right, so that's our second question. Oscar, if you want to unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you. The presentation is very informative. I just have a question. I know of a few people who take Prevagen and other over-the-counter medications, and just about all of them have expressed positive feelings and thoughts about that. And some people, even medical professionals, have said to me, "Look, I have Alzheimer's in my family. It's not a cure. I'm not waiting. I take Prevagen," and they've mentioned other things, but Prevagen sticks in my mind. I just wanted to know what is your opinion about people taking Prevagen? Do you know? Is it, has it, is it, what's the feedback in terms of that?
Absolutely. I think even with just privilege and actually just with any other medical, with any medications too, of course, everyone is different, right? So just because it works well for one person doesn't mean it's going to work well for another person. And because we're all taking different medications, you don't know how that might turn to side effects with a different medication too. Of course, in general, though, I do know that their privilege does kind of, there are some medications that, okay, sorry, maybe not also with Prevagen, but also with other medications too. They do help with some of the symptoms too, right, of any medical condition, right? But again, we always want to make sure that we have a list of all the different medications before we go to a doctor and let the physician know or geriatrician know that, I'm interested in, I heard that Prevagen was really good for, some of my colleagues. Would that be recommended for me depending on my medical conditions and these current medications that I'm taking? So I want to say that's my general feedback is it's really hard to place on something because everyone's different. Great question.
Anything else, Oscar? Or
No, that was good. I think in the line, someone just while he was talking, someone said Prevagen's not a medication, but to me, that's neither here nor there because he answered the question. You have to go back to your doctor. Your doctor, if he tells you to take it, and then you leave it in the hands of God. But a lot of people aren't getting positive results from it in the meantime. So I guess that's what we have to go on at this point.
okay.
Actually, and also, sorry, I should also mention too, like with any types of, supplements and vitamins too, right? Again, with medication, supplements, vitamins, anything that you're going to ingest, honestly, right, to make you feel at your tip-top shape. Again, anything with that, we want to make sure that we do speak with doctor and bring that list, and the medical conditions too, 100%.
Thank you. All right, the chat, yeah.
Apologize. Every time someone puts something in the chat, it goes back to the bottom, but give me 1 second. Okay, there we go. So the next question that I saw was, is progression slowed if a person is able to remain in familiar surroundings with family assistance? So I did answer this one in the chat, but want to expand a little bit more about that. All right. With this disease, I always like to say this, if you know one person with Alzheimer's or dementia, you know one person with Alzheimer's and dementia. All right, because that disease affects everyone so much differently. Right, for some people, those familiar settings, right, and families with family assistance, right, that could allow for the person living with dementia to have that better emotional regulation for them to feel more comfortable, right? But for some people, right, maybe staying at home, not getting the new stimuli, right, for the brain, not getting enough activity or doing new things, right, that might also play an impact on the progression. Right. So it's really depending on their preferences. So, it may or may not be beneficial, but also, again, with what I said in the chat too, we also want to take a look at not just the person living with dementia, but also take a look at the situation of the different caregivers, right? That might be putting into play. And also, if there's only one caregiver, right, maybe we want to think about a home health aide to help with that family assistance, right? Maybe we think about maybe a nursing home or a memory care facility, right? So we definitely want to play everything into part and think about everything for that family assistance and familiar surroundings. All right.
Susan?
Susan?
Yeah.
Hi, thank you both very much for a wonderful presentation. Very helpful. I'm just curious about the family history piece of this. My father had developed Alzheimer's when he was about 90, and he died when he was 96, but not from, I'm not Alzheimer's, I'm sorry, dementia. Not from the dementia, but it made me think about the family history piece, and I always now am concerned that this is in my family background. So are there any data about the percentage of people who currently have dementia from whatever causes that do have a family history? I don't know that I want to know the answer, but I thought it would be good to ask.
Again, with that, I want to say with family history, right? I think the average risk for that would be around like 10 to 12%, which is, if you really think about it, if we're able to knock that number down more with healthy habits. I keep emphasizing that because it's so true. Because again, our hearts are connected well directly with our brains. So whatever you're going to do to protect your heart, so it's going to protect the brain too, right? We do see an average like percentage of that, 10 to 12%. But again, if we are very concerned with, the family history, I would say I know some caregivers, they also do maybe like an annual or biannual checkup just to see if there's anything in the brain before the symptoms do show up, right? Of course, we definitely do want to talk with if you have Medicare or insurance, right? Talk about what that coverage looks like first, right? And of course, there's that kind of aspect on kind of catching it early or like noticing it early.
Okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. All right, going back to the chat. Oh, actually, I kind of answered this one already. Does insurance cover brain imaging in the asymptomatic stage? Same question for MCI due to Alzheimer's disease stage. So in 2023, Medicare did expand that coverage for those brain scans, including the amyloid buildup in the brain PET scans, which is also another showing that there could be Alzheimer's dementia in the brain. But of course, with any other insurances, I'll be completely honest, I'm not too well versed beyond that about insurances. So of course, I always like to advise speaking with your insurance and also in relation to the primary care physician and or geriatrician, for sure. All right. We'll go back to you, John. John, do you have a question? Oh, I think you're muted.
Yeah, I think you said that a lot of my questions were about, I guess I would call this preventative care in essence. My father had Alzheimer's, went through all three stages, it was very difficult. So so for someone like myself, who I'm sure there's many of us who have, family members, but I said it was my father, like what should be my first step? Well, I'd like to know whatever I can know. Obviously, understanding that there's no, testing doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get it. But what do I do? What's the recommendations for next steps?
I might be a little biased because also I'm a care consultant, but also with the Alzheimer's Association, I do think that just knowing what the warning signs are, right? And again, with the warning signs, it doesn't have to be all of the warning signs for there to be concern. It could just be one or two, right? And I think that's something that I will be sending out to you, Joan. I don't know if you have access to send the pamphlets and all that stuff to everyone here. If not, I could throw it in the chat too.
I throw it in the chat, but yes, we can, if it's okay, we can actually post it. The recording gets posted on the union website and we can post it.
Sounds good. All right. I'll do both. But I do think just being aware of exactly what this disease is, knowing what the warning signs are for yourself and also for others around you too, and making sure that we know that we want to talk with the person, right, showing symptoms and going with them to a doctor to, get that testing diagnostic process started. And also knowing about the, preparing way in advance the early benefits of early detection, just knowing what those are too. I think those are probably the number one step outside of just, doing your yearly physician visits and, testing.
So if obviously, insurance is always, precarious. So if I went to and again, I know if you can't answer this, if I went to my primary care provider and said my dad had Alzheimer's, I'm asymptomatic, could, I guess, I'm sorry if this might be an unfair question, can you get a brain scan?
I think there's, again, many aspects of your insurance and
Right, okay.
coverage too.
Right.
I know for a fact that I know, sorry, not for a fact, but I know many times if you do state that you do have family history and you do want to be well prepared just in case, because again, with the disease, it could pop up in the brain before you even show symptoms too, or before you get to the MCI stage as well.
Would that also
And
include that genetic testing for risk genes?
for risk genes, yes, those you can definitely do way before you see, anytime actually. For that.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm gonna go back. Thank you, Joan, for the question. I'm gonna go back to the chat again. What is the time frame to develop full-blown Alzheimer's from having a constant forgetfulness standard? Again, because we know one person with Alzheimer's, we know one person, so typically though, we do see that symptoms, they do progress from that mild to middle and to severe stages. But just really depending again on those pre-existing medical conditions, previous traumatic head injuries, right? That could change, right, from mild to severe. That could be honestly from anywhere from 2 years to 20 years, right? I know I've talked to people who also live with the disease and also caregivers too who have lived well over for 22 years actually with the disease. And then once they got to the late stages, that's unfortunate where, they started to pass, but that was within just 1 year, the last year, right? For some people, unfortunately, because there are other conditions, right, that could progress rapidly. But again, that's where we want to make sure that the early detection is there so we can plan as soon as possible the legal, financial, and medical aspects too. Lynette? I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Did you say Lynette? Good
I did.
afternoon. I also put it in the chat, but I didn't get a response
Oh, geez.
back about 1 o'clock. Why are Blacks a more affected Alzheimer population?
So while we don't have the exact research, but we do have research that shows that Black Americans are at a higher risk for vascular diseases. But because again, the heart is directly connected to the brain, that could potentially explain that there is the higher risks for both, the Black American population as well as the Hispanic population too. So with that one, that's why in New York City, I don't know if there has been, unfortunately, the facts and figures show that Bronx in New York City shows the highest prevalence within the entire United States. And that could be due to, again, the higher levels of vascular disease, but also because of the, lack of resources and of course different, many different factors from, socioeconomic status to, access to all the different healthy, foods or, different things that people in the higher economic status would be able to have easy access to, right? I could definitely also send that too. We have a whole report on the facts and figures specifically on the different demographics with, Asian population, with the Black American population, et cetera, et cetera.
I'm in the Bronx, actually, and you're saying
Gotcha.
that may be one of the highest areas because of social economics or healthcare, or what's your sense?
So access to these different, I guess, different healthcare aspects too, not just the insurance portion, but also too, right, the different, I want to say, like the different diagnostic centers too, even that we've seen very low, but thankfully nowadays, right, we do see that Lincoln Hospital, I know that Montefiore is also now being able to do that testing too, right? So we've seen in for many years that the access to testing, you would have to go to maybe Manhattan or, Jersey, that's closest to Bronx, right? Of course, that contributes to levels to the numbers as well. And of course, with nowadays, we're always working with hospitals to make more hospitals have these age-friendly and also guide programs so that these testings are widely available, right, for that early detection. And then gonna go back to the chat. I am sorry. Every time someone puts something in chat, it goes back to the bottom.
That's it. And how is your time, June? I mean,
I'm okay. Sorry, Hong, are you okay time-wise? I'm okay to stay on.
I'm okay to stay on for another 10 minutes, but I need to leave like at 2.
Okay.
No worries. I also have a unfortunate hard stop at 2.
Sure.
But I do have time until then.
Okay.
Let's see. I'm sorry. I am going through the chat. We did that one. The names. Okay. I think I answered your question, Joan, in the chat, right?
Yes.
The criteria.
Yes.
So I'll skip over that one. Please talk about the Alzheimer's Association program for wandering, right? So while we don't have a specific program designated to stop wandering, right? We do referrals out to, not referrals. I can send you resources, or the helpline can also help you in real time. So I always like to say our 24/7 helpline is probably our one-stop shop for everything, because besides it being free, because we are a nonprofit, you can call that number anytime, day or night, and you can talk to mass level clinician or social worker or care consultants, right? If you have a instance of wandering, right, and you don't know exactly what to do, outside of, calling the, first responders to find this person, right? You can definitely use a helpline to navigate what you should do in that situation in real time. With wandering too, I do want to really promote, right? I know there are companion cards that you can put into someone's wallet, right? That tells if a police officer or first responder finds this person just wandering, somewhere where it could be inappropriate, right? Once they, sometimes I know many caregivers, they do the lanyard with that information about, I'm a person with dementia and Alzheimer's, this is my address, and this is who to contact too. You can definitely find that on our website too. I know for wandering, many people, they also put like those, nowadays they put like air tags, especially if they already had like a case of wandering before, in their shoes, or in their wallets too, or something that they always keep on hand, right? That way you can help track that person, because ultimately you want to make sure you know where that person is and get to that person as soon as possible, right? So those are just some of the things that we kind of offer for wandering assistance. I wasn't sure who rose your hand first, Susan or Dr. Judith.
Judith did.
Okay.
I think.
Okay, so I was going to ask about wandering as well, but since you covered that, I will just say I'll piggyback on what you talked about in terms of the span of time between one stage to the other. My mother was diagnosed in 2013 with Alzheimer's. She's still with us at 91. However, when I found her diaries, she had indicated in the diaries that there was something wrong 10 years prior to being diagnosed in 2013. So she would write in her diary, and she would, that would help her to remember things. So she would say, well, I'm going out this day or that day, but I forgot this person's name, or I feel so shaky, or I felt out of it And I was reading this and had no idea she was going through this. I just thought it was, old age. She, forgot, and it was old age. But she was indicating these things in her diary. And that's now 20 years. She's still here with us. And I find that for her, I know it's different for everybody, having the routine, having exercise, good meals, talking to her, and also having her talk. And like you said before, having all of these different events happening, watching TV, talking, reading to her, and things like that really, really do help. So
Absolutely.
that's all I wanted to mention.
Thank you so much for sharing, Dr. Judith. Kudos to you for being able to also share that information too. I think it's really important that we do have these, real life anecdotes, right? Because again, this disease is very real. And just knowing that, what we want to look out for and the fact that, we are able to help this person with, non-medical, approaches too, with their likes and dislikes, with different activities throughout the day to make sure that they're still engaged, right? We don't want to take that away just because their abilities are, slowly going down, or just because, their usage of words and vocabulary is slowly going away, right? We don't want to just completely strip that away. We still want to make sure that they are, getting all of these different aspects that you talked about, right? The activity, the making sure that, diary writing and also having conversations too, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you so much for sharing about that.
And the other thing is not making them wrong.
Right,
Because
absolutely.
you remember this, and I would
Right.
see her face like, oh my God, what's going on? Or no, you're not right. And then you would see all of the flood of emotions. So we just go with it now.
Right, absolutely. And definitely, quizzing a person living with Alzheimer's dementia, it's not only unfair for the person, right? It is also it brings up a lot of emotions too, right? So we definitely want to, sometimes we just need to go along with the flow. If they say, we're in California right now, it's 1973, and, I just love, mac and cheese, right? Maybe we focus on the mac and cheese and say, hey, great, yeah, we're in California, it's time for lunch, let's eat some mac and cheese, focusing on the action step, right? That's our main goal versus the quizzing, which ultimately won't really go anywhere, to be honest.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Judith. All right, gonna go back to the chat. Okay.
Doesn't help.
I do see one question from the chat. The prescribed Alzheimer's drugs cause suicide in elderly patients. Now they're prescribed for autism. Do you have any information on this practice? For this one, I think be completely honest, I haven't really heard too much about this, right? I want to say maybe that's why the screen for depression has been massively included, especially after the lockdown that we had for COVID, which, that social isolation really did play a part into a lot of people's mental health, right? I know now a lot of the screen for depression is part of that assessment process because of, potential side effects. And if there's undiagnosed depression too, right, along with other medical conditions, you just never know what might happen, right? So I think it's also really important that when we are noticing, not just with Alzheimer's or, dementia, but with any other medical conditions, right, that we do speak with the doctor as soon as possible and let the doctor know that these are the signs that I see, that I've seen, and there's some real life examples that have happened, right? I think that example portion is what's going to really help, push that diagnostic process forward, or also having them to take action on those different aspects too. And Susan Fain, I'm so sorry.
Okay. I'm a former caregiver, and I wanted to ask you, when I asked the question about the wandering programs, I remember that my mother was registered in something called Safe Return, And I was wondering if you still have that, because I thought that was invaluable. She died over 15 years ago, so there weren't the technologies like putting the things in the shoes and whatever, but this was a bracelet that you put on the wrist, and it had a number on it and the Alzheimer's Association's phone number. So you would call it if you found the person and be able to identify them, and the Alzheimer's Association had all the contacts and had all the information that you would need, the medical information. And I don't know, you didn't mention it. I don't know if it's still an active program, but it's wonderful.
Yeah, I know even up until 2 years ago, we were actually still promoting it, but because of the license expiration from their end, we still are able to help promote it, but of course we can't put the Alzheimer's Association name on the Safe Return program anymore. But definitely, I do think those bracelets that tell, who the emergency contact is, who to contact, letting them know that this is a person with Alzheimer's dementia. I know definitely there still is a lot of actually, yeah, on the website for Safe Return, you can definitely find more information on that. But yes, definitely there is still that program for sure.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. And what
Yes, I do
I knew
too.
my mother would give me a hard time about putting the bracelet on. So I went to the pharmacy and got one of the medical alert bracelets, and I put it on myself. And when I showed her the Alzheimer's bracelet, I said, "Look, I got a bracelet. I got you one just like it. Let's see how it looks." So she accepted it, differently than if I just said, "Here's a bracelet, let's put this on you." So it seems to work.
A lot of times the mimicking too, that really helps with the person living with Alzheimer's because, hey, I'm brushing my teeth. You want to stand next to me and brush your teeth too, right? More times than likely, not than likely, then they will also want to do that too, right? Again, with the bracelet too, I got a bracelet too. You want to see? I got one for you too, right? That's definitely one great trick that I think, or tip rather, that has helped a lot of caregivers that I've talked to as well. So thank you so much for sharing, Susan.
You're welcome. I hope it's
Yeah.
helpful for everybody.
No, 100%. I definitely think it's really helpful for everyone.
Thank you.
All right. So
It's two.
it is 2:02.
Yeah. Okay.
I
So
apologize. Sorry.
no, you've spent so much time with us. And I'm just trying to think, you know what? I'll be in touch with you. I can get a printout of the chat. There are, and always send that to you. But yeah, I'll be in touch with you because I want to. I know you said you have a healthy living seminar, which I think would be interesting. But maybe even just to just talk about how to continue this discussion because obviously this was it was an excellent presentation and it really initiated so many questions and obviously people of our age are very concerned about this and etc. So I'll reach out to you, June. But thank you, June. Thank you, Hong. Thank you so very, very much for this. For the time you spent in these excellent questions. Presentation. Oops.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We'll be in contact, Joan.
Yes,
We'll
I'll be in
also,
contact.
I'll take a quick screenshot of all the questions. Maybe I could send you, or I could send if you send me all the questions, I can answer them and then you could send it out with the other materials I'll send too.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. All right. Okay. I'm sorry. That was like an amazing presentation. And I think just like a quick show of hands, because there are other questions in the chat. Maybe next season, because I'll be talking about the remaining season. Would you want to have June back? If people could just raise a hand, yell out yes, how's everyone feeling about that? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Actually, we have some hands raised. I don't know if this, Annette? Unmute yourself, please.
Hi, I know you were saying raise your hand, so I finally
Oh, okay.
found the button and could
Oh,
get the
okay.
hand up. All
Okay.
right.
Okay, good. Okay, and Elaine, you had,
No, that was just in response to you raised the hand.
okay, cool. Okay, good. All right, so I'll speak with you and we'll make some other arrangements for next season. Just want to acknowledge that March is Women's History Month. There are many activities going on throughout the city, and possibly wherever, some of you who live out of state. So, please take advantage of them. Health insurance update. The health, to my knowledge, the only thing that I know that is presently I must say going on, besides that the various lawsuits that I guess are obviously in their various stages of appeal or whatever, and I don't think there's been any movement on those, is that and Joan Grippa had talked about it, was Intro 1096, which is that the city is that a person, Mr. Marte from the city council introduced this bill that would basically preserve our right for Medicare. It's at this point, I think there might only be around 11 city council persons on board, which certainly isn't very positive. So if the ask is to call your city council people and ask them to sponsor this bill, 1096. Does anyone have any other information about where we are with health insurance? No. Okay. Actually, there's a lot of, Susan, can you check the chat? There's a lot of stuff in the chat. Eileen, you have your hand up?
Yes, it's about that $15 copay.
Right.
So some of my providers are asking for it, some not, but I was trying to figure it out because Medicare doesn't require that copay, but I think the supplemental does. And so so they don't want to pay that copay. They don't want to pay for a copay. Am I right? Is that the way it works?
Who's they don't want to pay?
The supplemental.
Well, oh, so GHI, you're saying GHI Senior Care does not want to pay?
They want us to pay a copay.
Yes.
It's not Medicare.
Right. That's my understanding. There is the lawsuit about the copay, and we had to start paying our copay again January 1st because a hold was took off of that. The judge had originally put a hold on that we didn't have to pay the copay. We took the hold off. So we had to start paying January 1st, but obviously that is a continuing lawsuit about that. My understanding, if anyone else, I don't.
So I've been paying it essentially, but
Yeah, I've been paying the copay too. Some doctors know about it, some don't. Typically, the ones that don't know about it, they what's the word? I'll get a bill for it or something, and I'm just keeping a file. I always ask for a receipt, and I'm just keeping a file of what I've paid with the copays. Susan?
Most of that was just people saying how much they liked the presentation. So,
Okay.
other than the questions that you're asking him to look at and to answer,
Oh, okay.
I'm seeing.
Okay, good. No, this was, quite a, a larger than usual turnout and quite a lot of questions from this presentation. So I said we'll have to kind of think offline how to continue on this topic. Susan, fine?
Yeah, I'm going back to Intro 1096. Are we reaching out to the OSA membership? the non-retirees to alert them to this, and this is going to affect them, in the near or far future, one way or another. So, and that's a bigger group,
So
well, maybe.
OSA is OSA, OSARC is OSARC. So we just reach out to our OSARC. It'll be in our minutes. It will be so that is in terms of what OSA is doing with this. I can't speak for that.
I see.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Robert Pfefferman.
With respect to the copay, it's quite confusing. They're not supposed to charge the copay, which is GHI, as was pointed out, not Medicare. They're not supposed to charge that until the annual deductibles have been reached. In my case, at least one provider did not get this right. I paid the $15. I wasn't going to argue with it. So if we're confused, providers are confused, and I guess they'll straighten out. At some point, OSA members keep in mind that you can get reimbursed through the superimposed major medical plan. I also want to comment on something that was just said about actives. The cost savings for us going into MAP is supposed to be $600 million. At the same time, right now, there is stalled an RF.
You're on mute. You're on mute.
Am I good now?
Yes.
So going back to the actives, there's an RFP somewhere for new healthcare plan for actives that's supposed to cut $1.2 billion from their healthcare costs, which adds up to a theft of $1.8 billion from healthcare for actives and retirees. And it's important for us to try to get this message out because there are people trying to pit actives against retirees, although not here, in other forums. And we're all facing a loss of quality healthcare coverage. That's what I have to say right now.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions, comments about the health insurance? Okay.
In that case, should we keep a receipt of our $15 copay every time we pay the $15? Should we keep a receipt? Since I think Robert just mentioned that we might get a refund. Someone just mentioned that we might get a refund, in the long run.
Yeah.
About that.
You always keep a receipt.
Always keep
everything. Keep the Medicare explanation of benefits, the GHI explanation of benefits, the receipt. You will need all of that paperwork to file for the reimbursement. And there are others that know more about the mechanics of that than I do. So I'll stop there. But keep all three of those documents.
All right. Thank you.
Any Ethel, go ahead, unmute yourself.
Just want to thank OSARC for calling me and advising me to refile my retiree health benefits form. As a result of me following instructions from OSARC, I got a updated Medicare card showing that I had Part D since 2017. First time. 2025 is showing that I have Part D since 2017. Thank you, OSARC.
Okay. Well, we can't take OSARC can't take credit for that. I'm sure that was probably from someone from OSA Benefits. I'm glad that that worked out for you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so all of you should have gotten on the meeting announcement. There was highlighted in red. There was a announcement about April's meeting. That April's OSARC meeting will be held in-house only. If you page down on the meeting announcement, there is a letter explaining the details about that. So I'd like to quickly review it. Before the pandemic, for those of you who were OSARC members at the time, I had just become, actually, I had just retired before the pandemic. The meetings were held in-house only. Obviously, with the pandemic, many things moved to Zoom, one of which was OSARC. And we have continued on Zoom because it's been very successful. It seems that is what retirees are comfortable with. And certainly one of the main benefits is that we can now include retirees who don't live in New York City. They can now, participate, like Oscar. I know, Oscar, you live in Georgia. Other people. That was my memory test. Other people, again, live in Massachusetts, Florida, etc. But it was felt that since it's been remarkably 5 years since the pandemic, that we should have an in-house meeting. And there have been some retirees that have made that request. So we are going to, we're calling it an experiment. We're going to have an in-house meeting only in April. This in no way, shape, or form means that is where we're headed for the future in terms that meetings will only be in-house. It doesn't mean that at all. What we would actually prefer for the future is in-house and hybrid meetings. But there's some work to be done on that. So if you can attend in person, if you want to, please either email me. That is on the flyer that was attached to the meeting announcement. But my email is joan.buravoy@gmail.com. Email me to tell me that you can come. If you're not coming, there doesn't have to be any correspondence. Or you can call the OSAR office and ask for Carol and tell her that you'll be coming to the meeting. It will just be lunch. At the in-house meetings, we have lunch. There typically are presentations. We're not going to have a presentation. It will just basically be meet and greet, get to know each other in person. In May, the meeting will resume on Zoom. And again, like I said, for the September season, we will have further information regarding how the meetings will look. But we will never fully give up Zoom. Please know that we won't do that. That it's really very important to have everyone, across the country, attend. And again, the main goal would be to have hybrid. And it's not to say that hybrid would be every month. It might be hybrid and then Zoom only, but all this is a work in progress. Any questions or comments about that? Okay. Now, I'm saying I'm seeing something in the chat. I'm sorry, one second. Wouldn't it be helpful to know who would not be able to attend because they desire to? I'm trying to think what that means. I'm sorry. Wouldn't it be helpful to know who would not attend? Right, but I'm sorry. Someone help me with this because they desire
She
to.
added just for the numbers. She
Right,
added.
right, right. But I'm
Okay.
not sure what the question is saying. What the because it's the last part that says, okay, would it be helpful to know who would not be able to attend? Fine, but because they desire to. I don't know what that.
I'm saying it's me. It's me, and I'm saying that wouldn't it be good to know the amount of people who would like to continue but can't because they can't, because they can't physically be there. When you just like to know how many people
Oh, I
can't.
see. Oh, no, that's a very good point. I see. So like who can't, whether it's because of distant where they live, or people might not be comfortable going on the subways anymore, or just being in large crowds. I see what you're saying. Well, it's right now the flyer already went out, so that's too late, but that's a very interesting
I mean, it could be simple as just a yes, no, and then you would just have a tally. It's like, okay, 25 people can't come,
right.
Then you would know.
So actually, since and I realize we're, nearing 2:30, why don't just okay, so let's ask that question and just physically raise your hand. Now, obviously, we have people here who we can't see them. So I don't know what Susan, what's the best way to do this? Just so you can get a feel from the people at who are attending this meeting. Rob, any suggestions how we can do that? Because a lot of people aren't physically, we can't see you.
Would you like to have a poll that they get to have that says, would you be willing to attend an OSARC meeting in the OSA office?
Sure.
Well, I can do
Does that
that.
address okay.
I mean, do you want it phrased differently? That would be,
Well, I'm just wondering, do we phrase it the way Annette is
I
saying?
don't know if I can change this in the middle here, but
Yeah. Maybe I'm just Oscar, what? Unmute yourself.
Just to help you out, Joan, I mean, I think you try
Thank you.
so hard in terms of trying to have these meetings here. And I just want to be careful how I phrase this. I think, you said, like, yes, I live in Georgia, so obviously I'm not coming to the meeting. And so you address that. This is for people, to have a face-to-face, which sounds like a great idea. If I was in New York, I'd come, but I can't come, but I'm okay with that. So actually, to give you another task to I think less is better. You also said you're not going to cut it out. There will be meetings going further ahead.
Right, we're
There
not
are
cutting.
people, because I live in Georgia, and some people because of agoraphobia, afraid to come out, or other issues that they can't come out is understood. And if there's a tally for that, that's fine. But I mean, right now, it was just that you said that that's a chance. We haven't had one in a while, so people in New York can get together and just socialize and see people. There are people there that I haven't seen. It would be great just seeing them and say hello. There's magic in that. But then we would go back to
Right.
see each other. So I just wanted to say that. I want to say bye because you're working so hard. I don't want to overwork. Bye.
Yeah, Oscar, thank you. As you can see, I was struggling with how to.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not always able to to respond, or I have to mull things over. Thank you. That's very kind of you. Susan, you have your hand up.
Not that
Sorry?
no, I didn't.
I'm sorry, Susan Fine.
Oh, okay.
I haven't. I mean, I didn't hear him. He's supposed to come.
What?
What's that?
Okay, so I think he might be talking. So Susan, Fine.
I was, really echoing what other people have already said, but it seems like, since there is an understanding that there are definitely people that cannot attend, just by virtue of where they live, that it's going to be cutting out people by having it as in person only. And that becomes a fact. And I don't think that's something that we want to do. So until, things are in place to do it as a hybrid, that maybe we need to stick to something that we know that everybody has an opportunity to attend and doesn't, actually cut people out for sure. Because we have seen how valuable it is to have Zoom.
Thank you. No, and thank you. And certainly, like I said, we just felt
Have a party.
Yeah, the responsibility, because there are people who are interested to come in. So, and I mean, and this also gives us a feel for um I'm going to be very honest with you. The meeting notice went out in on Thursday, and an email and from responses, I've only gotten two responses, and that was from Thursday. Now I don't know how many people called into the office. Carol, the receptionist in the office, is taking the phone calls, and she's out today. So I had called her to find out. So I'll give her a call. Also, there are around a quarter of the retirees who we don't have email addresses for. So we send out minutes to them. And in those minutes, we sent out a flyer. So that was done a week ago. So some people might still be not have received that yet. So we're also, so part of it, we're also going to get a feel for even, what the response will be for April. So we are proceeding with April. And yes, I mean, we're not going to, I mean, we fully understand the value of having the Zoom meetings without a doubt. Okay. Rob.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something, just because some people were saying that they didn't want to exclude people, and that therefore, and that's why the goal would be to do a hybrid, because that quarter of the people who have no email address are not getting the regular invitations and are not on the Zoom. So in a sense, for the last number of years, they've been excluded. Just wanted to point that out. So it's two-way street.
Right. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Okay. Right. But there's also reasons why they're not getting it, because the newsletter is on hold. So they would get it in the newsletter.
No, but I mean, the point that I'm making is they're indicating, because of what they're doing, that they have no means of signing in
Yes.
to a Zoom meeting. So
Right.
they're in a sense being excluded from participation in the life of the organization, because they don't have the means or the desire, or maybe they just don't have the will, I don't know which, but to do that. So
Okay.
just pointing that out.
Got it. Any other comments about so again, that's April. If you if you can come, please either, like I said, call the office and ask for Carol, or email me. I see Rob put it in the chat. And let me know that you can come. So you know what, we're just gonna leave that as is. I think as much as I think might be interesting to ask that question. Oscar, you had talked about keeping things simple. Let's just do that now, because we're having our full 2 hours here. We all want to get on with other stuff to do. Upcoming events, May will be Zoom, and May will be a talk about it's about the World Trade Center fund. Am I correct in saying it that way?
It's a joint presentation. One person talking about the World Trade Center health program, which deals with people's physical health needs and mental health needs, and the victims' compensation fund for those who are seeking compensation for loss, economic and otherwise, from their exposures on 9/11.
Okay, thank you. And I will not be able to be at that meeting. So Susan will be chairing it. I will be in Ireland. My first, I'll show you my first overseas trip with my husband. And we've been married 30 something years. So very exciting about that. And the June meeting, which in the past was typically a luncheon, that was always in the past. And now with the pandemic, we would have a June meeting on Zoom. We're going to we haven't decided yet how we'll be handling the June meeting. Okay. I think some of this will be what April looked like. what the attendance in April look like. So we will get back to you on that. But I'm certainly hearing the feedback here that that people that Zoom is very important because everyone wants to be included, in the meeting. So any other questions, comments before we sign off? No. All right. Thank you all very, very much. Thank you. Be well. Take care of yourselves. And we will see you in May.
Thank you for your work. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.